Okay, I'm going to hit record. It's
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, it's nice to see everyone. So I always like to start our session with a reading from Baba, and this is from the Discourses, pages 382 and 383. And Baba says, different opinions or different ways of thinking do not introduce multiplicity within the one indivisible soul for the simple reason that there are no opinions or any ways of thinking within the soul. All the activity of thinking and conclusions drawn therefrom are within the ego mind, which is finite. The individualized soul as soul does not think. It is only the ego mind that thinks. Thinking and the knowledge that comes through thinking are both possible in the state of imperfect and incomplete knowledge that belongs to finite ego minds. In the individual soul itself, there is neither thinking nor the knowledge that comes through thinking. The individualized soul as soul is infinite thought and infinite intelligence. There is no division between the thinker and the thinking and the conclusions of thinking, nor the duality of the subject and object. Only the ego mind with the background of the soul can become the thinker. The individual soul as soul, which is infinite thought and infinite intelligence, does not think or have any activity of the intellect. Intellect with its limited thinking comes into existence only with the finite ego mind. In the completeness and the sufficiency of the infinite intelligence, which is the one soul, there is no need for the intellect or its activities. With the shedding of the last vestige of falsehoods created by Maya, the individualized soul not only knows its reality to be different from the gross, subtle, or mental body, but it knows itself to be God, who is the only reality. In this state, the soul knows that the mind, the subtle body, and the physical body were all equally the creations of its own imagination, and that in reality they never existed. It knows that through ignorance it conceived itself as the mind or the subtle body or the physical body. The individual soul knows also that in a sense it became the mind, the subtle body, and the gross body, and then identified itself with all these self-created illusions. So that's our beloved. Just to give us perspective as we work on wearing out our own mind. I mean, I do feel that the purpose of self-inquiry is to wear out the mind and so to bring us closer to Baba. Does anybody else have any thoughts they'd like to share on that quote? And you have to unmute yourself if you have anything you'd like to share. And hi, Douglas. Hi there. Yeah.
Hi, Douglas.
So what I'd like to do today, we're going to finish up the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet on seeking love that we've been actually working on for the last month. And so I don't know if you ever got yourself a copy of the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. It looks like this. And we have been doing a group inquiry on someone that we care deeply about, who we believe doesn't love us enough. That was our first part 1 week, that we all found a situation where somebody that we care about doesn't love us enough. And then the second week, which is statement 2 on the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, it's what we wanted in this situation, what we wanted them to, how we want them to change, what we wanted them to do. And so our generic statement that we all worked on was, I want them to do what I want. Okay, and then the last session, which we had 2 weeks ago, we worked on statement 3, the advice we would give them. And our statement was, they should try to understand how I feel. And so this week, we're going to finish up the worksheet. We're going to do numbers 4, 5, and 6 today. And our number 4 is the needs, what we need in order to be happy in this situation. What do we need them to think, say, feel, or do? And this week, our statement is going to be, I need them to love me more. So we started out, they don't love me enough. That was our umbrella statement. And then we have to pick a generic statement. And so what we're going to use today is, I need them to love me more. And of course, it's he or she, whoever you are working on. I need him or her to love me more. And of course, when you're doing an individual inquiry, it would be absolutely tailor-made to you specifically. But I felt that this was the easiest way to have a group inquiry for all of us. And let's see. I'm going to read to you what Baba says about how needs are different from wants. And he really elevates needs, and of course, and so we can just talk about the difference between how the work is and then how it would be for us as Baba lovers. So this is pages 12 and 13 in the 7th online edition of the Discourses. So Baba says, selfishness inevitably leads to dissatisfaction and disappointment, because desires are endless. The problem of happiness is therefore the problem of dropping one's desires. Desires, however, cannot be effectively overcome through mechanical repression. They can be annihilated only through knowledge. If you dive deep in the realm of thoughts and think seriously for just a few minutes, you will realize the emptiness of desires. Think of what you have enjoyed all these years and what you have suffered. All that you have enjoyed through life is nil today. All that you have suffered through life is also nothing in the present. All was illusory. It is your right to be happy, and yet you create your own unhappiness by wanting things. Wanting is the source of perpetual restlessness. If you do not get the thing you want, you are disappointed. And if you get it, you want more and more of it and become unhappy. Say, I do not want anything, and be happy. The continuous realization of the futility of wants will eventually lead you to knowledge. This self-knowledge will give you the freedom from wants that leads to the road to abiding happiness. Wants should be carefully distinguished from needs. Pride and anger, greed and lust are all different from needs. You might think I need all that I want, but this is a mistake. If you are thirsty in a desert, what you need is good water, not lemonade. As long as one has a body, there will be some needs, and it is necessary to meet those needs. But wants are an outcome of infatuated imagination. They must be scrupulously killed if there is to be any happiness. As the very being of selfishness consists of desires, renunciation of wants becomes a process of death. Dying in the ordinary sense means parting with the physical body, but dying in the real sense means renunciation of low desires. So I like that Baba says low desires, because in my experience, it's okay to have high desires, because we're not like in a place where we can just poof, be enlightened. The priests prepare people for false death by painting gloomy pictures of hell and heaven, but their death is illusory. As life is one unbroken continuity, the real death consists of the cessation of desires, and it comes by gradual stages. So, Baba is talking about, our needs are like for food, water, shelter. And in the work, today we're saying, I need them to love me more. But as you know, as we go through inquiry, and we do the turnarounds, and then we find out, I need me to love me more, I need me to love them more, and I don't need them to love me more. What it does is it brings our desire up, what we believe we need to be happy, and it just lays it to rest as we thoroughly explore all these possible ways of looking at this problem. And it's our problem. When we believe the thought, I need them to love me more, or I need them to appreciate me, or I need them to respect me, or I need them to listen to me. You know, it's continuous. And I believe if we're all honest with ourselves, we do notice that those thoughts arise constantly. It's certainly true for me. And I do find that through this inquiry, it does slow the mind down, and it does help us to live more in the witness mode, to just witness our thoughts instead of believing that we are our thoughts. Would anybody like to make any comments about what I just read?
And I would just like to know what the pages were again for the discourses that
Okay, yeah, those are pages 12 and 13 of the 7th on, well, actually it's in the hard copy of the 7th edition of Discourses.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. It's like every day I get a fresh delight, you know, rereading the discourses and going, wow, Baba said that. And, you know, it's so new and alive. And, you know, it's pretty mind blowing to read the discourses and anything that Baba says, because he is speaking from that place of pure reality, pure love. And so it's always fresh and new. Okay, so today, I had one more thing I wanted to read about the objective universe, because this is something I ponder quite a bit. And so I'm just gonna read that now, and then see if anybody has any thoughts on it, because I certainly am. It's something that I'm not totally clear on. So Baba says, and this is page 18, Baba says, the separateness of individuals does not exist in reality, but only in imagination. The one universal soul imagines separateness in itself, and out of this division there arises the thought of I and mine, as opposed to you and yours. Although the soul is in reality an undivided and absolute unity, it appears as being manifold and divided owing to the working of its own imagination. Imagination is not a reality. Even in its highest flight, it is a departure from truth. It is anything but the truth. The experience the soul gathers in terms of the individualized ego is all imagination. It is a misapprehension of the soul. Out of the imagination of the universal soul are born many individuals. This is Maya, or ignorance. Side by side with the birth of the separate and limited individuality, there also comes into existence the objective universe. As the limited individuality has separate existence, not in fact, but only in imagination, the objective universe also has no independent and separate reality. It is the one universal self appearing in the second role of manifestation through these attributes. So I guess my question is, the objective universe is not reality. However, there's like a consensual reality, like we all can read the news and just see what it is. We might have different takes on it, but I would love to hear anybody's thoughts on, you know, just your musings on this whole objective universe.
Yeah, it's like even the idea of money is just it's a myth that we all agree to believe in, and it's very powerful, but it's not actually worth anything.
Yeah. Yeah, so it says the objective universe also has no independent and separate reality. So it's just interesting, and I guess what I can take out of it is that realizing, like Baba says, you know, we take life too seriously, the world, and then we don't take God seriously, and it's backwards. And so we can't give the world and what's happening in the world too much credence, because it really is imagination, even though there's some consensual reality that we've all bought into. Anyway, that's a mystery that I would love to hear anybody explain to me more.
Funny, this is coming up because I just finished watching a phenomenal documentary on physicist Bohm. Are people familiar with him? Like he was with Oppenheimer, and you know they were working on this quantum theory, and kind of proposing this. He was the one that really started proposing this unity through a scientific point of view, because they looked at fine particles of matter enough to experimented enough to know that it changes form when somebody looks at it.
Yes.
Which is, I remember when I first read my first quantum physics book, called, for the masses, I guess, it wasn't a scientific book, but it was called The Dancing Wu-Lai Masters.
Yes.
And oh my God, that just blew my mind open, because it just really is proving scientifically what Baba has been saying all along, which is the objective universe is out of our thinking, mind, imagination.
Yes.
So I think ultimately science is coming to prove also that what Baba says is true, that we create and project the realities that we experience. So I'm totally, I guess not experiencing it, but bought into it. Like, makes sense, because thank God it's that.
Yes.
Thank God it's imagination.
It's not reality.
Yeah, reality with a capital R. We really don't know what that is, but we can at least have intellectual conviction about it.
Yeah, and it really helps. It helps to read and study and then come together and just share these things to just encourage us, on this journey that we're on, this journey into the big mystery. It's just an unfathomable mystery of love. And, I can only say I am so grateful for Baba. He is love incarnate, and I'm so grateful for him.
The other thing they were talking about is he had a hard time. He knew there was something underneath all of it, underneath some force, underneath all of this manifestation that held it all together. And he could feel that it was this unity, but he couldn't put his hand on it. And then he got with Krishnamurti, and Krishnamurti kind of started expanding his soul consciousness. And I don't know if they settled on what that unity force is. And to me, it would be divine love, which
what else could it be, really? Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. This is a conversation that I would love to have more of. So if anybody, is interested in it and has thoughts, it's something we can continue to explore, down the road. So I have one more quote to read to you from Effort and Grace, our beloved Darwin Shaw, on page 17. Total loss is gain, 17 and 18. And then we're going to jump into our inquiry. So, our illusory life is a vacant dream. And Meher Baba has explained that drawing closer to God is the only endeavor that has real value. The general consensus, however, is that happiness lies in fulfilling our desires and in accentuating the self through possessions and achievements, regardless of the fact that this only creates more desires, more entanglements, and more bondage. On the involutionary path, the spiritual path, we undergo a refining, awakening process in which we discard elements of the self and sublimate all our energies so they can be used to fuel our love for God and propel the self toward Him. Therefore, spiritual advancement is not further development of consciousness, a process of acquiring something or an achievement for the ego. Spiritual advancement is emancipation from the bondage of samskaras. It involves disentangling oneself from the false and importantly, inviting the real into our being, opening to the truth within. This is in contrast to the psychological work of trying to get rid of our painful samskaric patterns in order to create a pleasant existence in illusion. In other words, trying perhaps unwittingly to harmonize with our samskaras. I believe that as spiritual aspirants, our concentration should be on loving God and merging with Him. And the predominant process we are engaged in is not self-realization, but complete self-effacement, which is both total annihilation and complete merging of the personality self into God. So that's more food for thought. I mean, I really feel like this whole spiritual, psychological approach is a dance, you know, and ultimately, for some of us, you know, dealing with the mind and the psychology is probably what our sanskaras are, but my goal is definitely not to create a more beautiful illusion. So that's what we're here for. We're here to annihilate our sanskaras. So does everybody remember the situation that you're working on where you first believed the thought that they don't love me enough? That was the first thought. And then it was, I want them to do what I want. And then last time we worked on, they should try to understand how I feel. So this week, you might want to write this statement down. I need him or her to love me more. And if you remember, my situation was with my husband, not wanting to move to Myrtle Beach. And these were my thoughts. And I feel that they're universal. I think everybody can find where they've had the thought, I really need them to love me more. And we're gonna just unwind that one today. Okay, so I'm trusting that everyone has their situation, and I'm gonna take you through the 4 questions of the inquiry. And I think everybody remembers how we do this. It's just a yes or a no for the first 2 questions, and then when we go to question 3, Diantha will put up the sub-questions. So take a few gentle breaths and just relax. This is where we really drop into our hearts. You know, Byron Katie says the questioned mind drops into its sweet home in the heart. And so we lay the thoughts to rest by really dropping inside and letting that voice of God, the voice of the heart, the voice of our beloved, rise up with those answers for us. Okay, so is it true that you need them to love you more? Is that true? No. And if you're willing, please unmute just to do this. Nobody's gonna know who says what.
Yes.
No.
Definitely no.
No.
Nope.
Okay.
No.
And so for those who said yes, I'm going to ask question 2, and the rest of you just wait. And again, I want you to ponder just for a minute. Can you absolutely know that it's true that you need them to love you more? Can you absolutely know that that's true? And whether it's a yes or a no, it doesn't matter. You can't give a wrong answer. So we're going to move on to question 3. So you can put up the sub-questions now, Diantha. Question 3 is, how do you react? What happens when you believe the thought, I need them to love me more? And the reason we like to use these sub-questions is because it's really easy to go into what we call story in the work. And we start telling stories about, why we need them to love us more or what they did that caused that. But that's not actually answering the question, how do you react when you're believing that thought? So start internalizing, because this work will become automatic. And when you notice a stressful thought, you'll be able to do this work internally. So notice, what emotions do you feel when you're believing that I need them to love me more? And just speak out emotions when you're ready.
Anger.
I
Frustration.
feel sad.
Hurt.
Hurt, yeah.
Frustration.
Yeah,
Frustrated.
yes,
Neglect.
yeah,
Kind of desperate.
Weak.
yeah, yeah.
Delusional.
But I feel like deflated.
With that
Like it's
person.
like I'm just deflated. So now everyone who found those emotions, I want you to now locate in your body, where do you feel that? And then start noticing the sensations and speak them out if you feel like it. And then we're going to do our exercise where we just stay in that sensation for a minute as the witness. We really have to learn to disidentify not only from our thoughts, but from our emotions and sensations. And they have information for us. If we're willing to just be with the uncomfortable sensations, something else will arise. There's something deeper underneath it that will arise when we do this practice often enough. So just take a few gentle breaths and concentrate your mind. This is a way to really get that mind under control. Baba wants us to learn to control our thoughts. So control it and just focus on whatever the emotion, the sensation was. Where do you feel that in your body? Now go into that place and just be with it. So what I noticed was that as soon as I went into my heart where the sadness was, I realized how tight my neck was. And I had to stretch my neck and shoulders. And then I noticed that the energy was more free to release out. It wasn't as stuck. And so I felt a relief from that. Does anybody else want to share what you experienced?
That's exactly where I experienced it too, and just at my neck and like where the skull comes into my neck, and I just kind of did the same thing and moved the energy. It's still there, but it's moving.
Yeah, thank you.
I
Yeah.
didn't really feel it anywhere.
What, Tina?
I didn't really feel it anywhere.
You didn't? What was the emotion that you had felt?
Anger.
And where did you feel it in your body?
And that's what I don't feel. I'm just having trouble tapping into that.
Yeah, and you know what? That's really common. And what I've found is that if you're willing to just keep working with it just for a few minutes every day, like just to get still and notice, where is that anger in my body? Because what we do is we bury these things because they're not acceptable. And so we bury things, we all do it. I mean, I've had deeply buried grief that's come up, and, you know, and now with the work, I know I don't have to do anything with it. I just have to feel it and be with it. But what happens is it's like, it's energy that's been captured inside, and then it frees, it's allowed to be used for something else. So just if you're willing to just do this a little bit every day, you will be able to feel where that anger is, and it'll be a beautiful release. You know, I've shed so many tears, I still do, and it's always a part of letting go of these deep wounds that we carry with us, and we don't have to do that anymore. Would anybody else like to share before we go on?
I felt it in my heart, my chest, and in a way in my lungs, because when I felt my chest, then my become deflated, contracted, and so then my lungs are constricted too.
Yes. And then as you were staying with it, did it move? Did something change?
I need to go back into it and do
Yeah, I mean, it can take a little time, but the other thing that often happens is that an image will arise from the past, usually an early childhood image. And then I always encourage the client to write that situation down. You know, it's often the case they're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. And I always say, trust the image that arises, because we're still holding on to that experience because our parents, we needed them for our survival. They're so important. But for some reason, subconsciously, we're still waiting for permission or for this parental image to come and give us what we need. And in the work, we discover that we can give it to ourselves. We can become the parent we're waiting for. And then we let our parents off the hook, and it's just a much freer way to live. But this is a very universal situation.
I could share something.
Yes.
Something popped into my being, I guess, was the feeling of invalidation, being invalidated. And I also, like Jackie, I felt it in my chest and lungs, just a restriction. It was pretty much very much there. Nothing moved. So, and then later on, as you were speaking, my brother came into view, which I think I have to do some work on that.
And trust the image. I can't tell you. Our inner wisdom, you know, it speaks in images, and you'll get a situation in time and space, probably from your childhood with your brother, and you'll know what to work on, you know, so that it will just be done. It'll be finished business. But sometimes we just have to go through this process. And of course, there are many valid processes, and this is one that I just received tremendous help from, which is why I share it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So this is another sub-question that is very fundamental. Whose business are you in when you're believing the thought that I need them to love me more? So whose business are we in? Do you remember the 3 kinds of business?
Yeah, we're in their business.
We're
Their
in there.
business.
So, and of course, we're always in their business when we write a worksheet. And that is the cause of our suffering, is because we're in somebody else's business. And this is kind of, you know, that objective world out there that we were reading about. What did the objective universe that Baba talks about? it's not so objective on some level, you know. It's a mystery, but as we identify what we're thinking and believing, then we are slowly able to withdraw that projection. Oh, I need them to love me more. We withdraw it and we integrate it, and we feel the pain in our own hearts because we were believing that someone or something outside would fulfill us. And as I always love to say, Baba lives in our heart. So that's where we need to be in order to be complete. We can't keep looking outside of ourselves. And perhaps this is the involutionary process, the unwinding of all those sanskaras and that incredible imagination that we have that has created this universe, this world that we've been, you know, believing is real for millennia. It's pretty amazing. So we just have to remember, whose business am I in when we're suffering? So now I want you to notice, how do you treat that person when you're believing the thought, I need them to love me more? Just close your eyes and look at that person who you're working on. And this can be very subtle, even how you treat them in your mind, not even necessarily with words. It could be your facial expression, or perhaps just the tone of your voice. When we're believing the thought, I need them to love me more, how do I treat them? And I noticed for myself in my situation, I distance myself. I remove myself from them.
Right. I do that.
I do that, and I also, I just don't treat them well. I don't appreciate them, and I don't see the value.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, projecting into them and just doing a lot of negative
Right.
stuff.
Well, when we're believing that that we need someone to love us more, our heart is in pain, right? So of course they're gonna, you know, that's what we're presenting to them, this pained heart.
I find I'll do the opposite of what is beneficial towards my relationship with that person.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Usually for me, that's me, you know.
Well, I do think that that's kind of the human condition.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of universal. It reminds me of something I think Paul said in the Bible, you know, about doing that which we would not do. I don't know if anybody's a biblical scholar, but there's something in the Bible about just the recognition of how I do things that I don't want to do. And there it goes again. Yeah. So now notice, how do you treat yourself when you're believing the thought that I need them to love me more? How do I treat myself when I'm believing that thought? Take a deep breath. I'm definitely feeling less than. I'm feeling weak and needy.
Definitely. And, just feeling sorry for yourself on the pity pot and lacking that positive energy, lower self-esteem kind of thinking for me.
Yeah. And, in the work, Byron Katie says victims are the most violent people. And I just was shocked when I first heard that, but I came to see over time that it's true, because we victimize ourselves. When that's how we treat ourselves, we become the victims. We believe that we're these helpless victims. And so it's a hard saying, but I have seen that it's true. And it's really easy to fall into the identification as a victim. And so just notice that when it happens, because certainly Baba wants us to be strong and cheerful. And even when we don't feel that way, yeah, we just have to keep at it. So what about, so why don't you scroll up, Diantha? I'm just looking at these last sub-questions, and what are you unable to do when you're believing the thought that I need them to love me more? What are you unable to do when you're believing that?
I would say I would go to a place where I'm really unable to think very clearly or sort things out or unbundle the emotional state I'm in. It's sort of a paralyzed place.
Yeah.
So
Wow,
I can't do
thank
much.
you. Yes. It's like brain fog, and just like you said, it's a paralyzed feeling. I know that very well. Anybody else have something they'd like to share? What are you unable to do when you're believing the thought that I need them to love me more?
Well, in my case, it was I need them to validate me more, and the feeling is one of anger and resentment. So I'm working with a whole different emotion, because I kind of know in my heart that they love me, but they don't validate me.
Yeah. So what are you unable to do then when you're feeling that anger and resentment?
Unable to love them.
Yeah. So let's do the last sub-question. What do you fail to see when you're believing the thought that I need them to love me more? What do we fail to see when we're believing that thought?
Well, I think it's like that slogan, they're not doing it to you, they're just doing it. And
yes. It's not personal.
Right.
And in reality, it never is. It's rather shocking, but I've really come to see that we all are just running on our own sanskaras, on our own programs. And, you know, it just helps to realize that it's just not, it's not really personal. It feels personal, for sure. Anybody else have something you'd like to share about what you fail to see when you're believing the thought that I need them to love me more?
It's not personal, it's not permanent. And there's another one, not personal, not permanent. I can't think of it, but.
Oh, I love that you said it's not permanent too. That's a beautiful insight. I know for myself in my situation, I was failing to see all the ways that my husband does love me. And it's amazing that I can forget that when I get caught up in this little whirlpool, you know, of one situation. So let's move on to question 4. Who would you be without the thought that I need them to love me more? Who are you then without that thought? And I think the last question that we did, the last sub-question, is a beautiful segue into question 4. So it's something we can repeat. So without that thought, I'm someone who can recognize all the many manifestations of love that my husband gives me. Who are you without that thought? I need them to love me more.
An adult.
Pardon?
An adult.
An adult. I love that. It's so true. You know, we're just trying to grow up here, aren't we? Yeah. Okay. So if you're ready, we'll move on to the turnarounds. Does anybody else have anything else they would like to say? Just go ahead and say it while Diantha puts up the turnarounds for I need them to love me more.
I would say I would feel free. There'd be a freedom.
Yes.
Without
yes.
that thought.
Yes.
Freedom to grow up.
Yeah. And it's also in not being dependent on anything outside of ourselves, because we are love. That's who we really are. And yet we keep feeling like there's something out there we need in order to be happy. And it's just not true. But, you know, it's nice to come together and explore this, because it's going to support us in learning to live this way more and more. And it's always a work in progress. So here are the turnarounds. Did somebody want to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say I would feel empowered.
Yes.
Without that thought.
Yes, yes. And I always find in question 4 over the last few years, I just feel compassion. I feel a lot of compassion for myself and for everyone. Like, we're just all in this, you know, situation, and we're all doing the best we can. And Baba says everything that happened had to happen and no one's to blame. And, you know, it's just good to remember. So let's look at the turnarounds for I need them to love me more. And our work here is to find 3 genuine, specific examples for each of the turnarounds below that could be as true or truer than your original statement. So find an example. I need me to love me more when I'm believing that thought that I need them to love me more. So just ponder that. And if you are willing to share, it helps all of us. I need me to love me more.
I think I can see it so clearly in other people who, you know, complain to me that this somebody in their life is not treating them well. And, you know, when I can look at the situation objectively, I just see that that's who the other person is. And they're not,
yeah.
And they're not trying to do it to be hurtful. That's just who they are. So
well, I mean, in reality, I would question if it's who they are, but it's who they believe they are. You know what I mean? It's like we're all believing our stressful thoughts until we don't. Yeah.
That.
I mean, in my situation, when I was wanting to move to Myrtle Beach and I was believing my husband didn't love me enough to move there, I needed me to love me more. And when I turned to within, I recognized that I had a lot of opportunities that I could just take a trip to Myrtle Beach, a long trip. And I did. And that was me needing to love me more and just going back into my own business and noticing that I have a lot of options. It's not black and white. He doesn't have to move there. I have other ways to get my needs met. Yeah. Anybody else want to share an example before we move on to the next turnaround?
I think if the trigger was started in childhood, you know, the story that we told ourselves about some event, I think it's probably, I mean, I don't know about past lives, forget that, but I mean, at least for the identifiable past in childhood, I think we have to rewrite that story, you know, go and get in touch with that child that really had no tools to deal with this, with the feelings at the time, and just kind of suppressed it and put it aside and became stuck energy. And we continuously then keep projecting that same story on others. So I did some work with the Landmark Forum, which really basically was this very thing of going back and rewriting that childhood event or story if we can find it. And I think today I found mine with my bro.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything you say is exactly my experience in working over the last decade with many clients. And everybody can do it. You can do it on your own. And the way you do it, as we just talked about, is you find the image from your childhood, and your inner wisdom will it will just flash you a specific incident. And then you go inside and you reparent that inner child, like let's say your 5-year-old self, and you reassure her, whether you do it verbally or just inwardly, and you let her know that, you know, I'm here for you 24/7. And, you know, the parent they didn't have the skill set to give us what we needed. And there's no blame, but we let the parents off the hook, and then we become more adults and we start giving to ourselves. And as we gather those fragmented parts of ourself, then the images don't arise anymore. There's just nothing left from childhood. It's like we're free of that particular karmic, you know, I mean, Baba talks a lot about our family group karmas. And I believe that the way we balance those is by healing our inner self, forgiving. It's a lot about forgiveness, forgiving the parents, the siblings, forgiving ourselves, and then feeling that wholeness more and more. But I have seen tremendous results with, you know, that reparenting, just going, I call it the inner child work, but it's really, you know, you can do it yourself. I've seen it work over and over again. So let's look at the turnaround to the other. I need me to love them more. So in your individual situation, just see if you can find an example of where I need me to love them more.
Well, for my father, you know, I don't love him. He was very abusive, and, you know, I don't really love him. And I don't know how I could get to that place.
Well, I can share with you from my own experience. And of course, we have Baba, who's completely available, because Baba's in everyone. So you know, maybe it would be helpful to just love Baba in your father, because he is in everyone. I mean, I had a lot of anger issues over my dad, who had a bad temper. And as I did the work on him over the years, and I did my final worksheet where I was completely free, I just saw the beauty of his soul. And you've described things about your dad that are just precious, you know?
I do think so. I'm more in tune with the last statement. I don't need them to love me more.
Okay, you know, the thing is if you're not still bound by anger, what we're working at here is becoming free. And if you discover that there's still some repressed anger that's absolutely related to your dad, you know, when the time is right, it may come up, and then it will just release. And I don't know, it may not even be necessary. You know, for me, I really needed.
I think when I was younger, I was more at the effect of it all. But now I hardly ever think about him.
Yeah, good. Okay. Does anybody else have an example of I need me to love them more in your individual situation?
Well, I feel my resistance to it. I don't see an example.
You don't?
No.
Okay. Okay. So I think I've told this story before, but I was working with a mentor years ago, and I could not find a turnaround to the other in this particular worksheet I was doing with one of my sisters, I was like, no way, it's not even possible. But I also knew intellectually how the work works, is that it had to be possible and that it was a key to my freedom. And I pondered it for a long time. I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks, and I just kept it in the back of my mind. And when I finally found an example, it was just like the light bulb went off in my head. And I told my mentor who was in Ireland, I said, I could feel those neural pathways opening up into my right brain. And, you know, she was laughing. She said, yeah, I could feel it across the Atlantic Ocean. It's really powerful when you can find those examples, but it takes time. And so if it's something that you're called to do, just write it down and contemplate it. I need me to love them more, because it will come if you're really sincere about it. And if you, I mean, I think you have to have a sense that the work is a really valuable tool. And it is for a lot of people, and it's not for everyone.
Well, and the irony is, it's with my sister, I used to love her so much and give her so much,
Yeah.
you know. So now I'm going the other way.
Yeah. Well, I hear what you're saying. And so maybe that love that with your sister would be not so physically demonstrative or outwardly giving, but just maybe in your heart, you know, because it is possible to overgive, you know. I mean, it's always about balance.
It doesn't say I need to show them more love. It just means, so I think a good practice sometimes for me, because Baba does say to love those who you cannot love. So I do think it's important. And I think, so just imagining the person surrounded by pink light is a nice way of showing them love, or of loving them, for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so hard to love the ones that we can't love. And oops, sorry. But I know Baba knows best. And so if he says we should love those we can't love, you know, I do it. And it's hard. It's just hard, but it gets easier. So let's do the turnaround to the opposite.
I
think Cliff wanted to say something.
Oh, Cliff, please go ahead.
It's Douglas.
Douglas.
The other male voice.
Sorry.
It's okay. So I just wanted to say that Baba's gesture for I love you is the same as I forgive you. It's the same gesture. And so to think also in terms of I love my wife. It's not a matter of that, but there are times when I don't feel it, but I can forgive. I can work to forgive the situation, her, me, whatever, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So a nice connection there between
that is so beautiful. Douglas, thank you. Yes, I love you, I forgive you. And I mean, forgiveness is such a mystery. And I just say, we can't know what we've done to this other person who's hard to love in the past. I mean, we don't know these things, and we don't need to know. But
well, and it just occurred to me, I could do this is dipping away from the work, but I could do the Ho'oponopono prayer for her.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you, I love you.
Yes, it's a beautiful prayer, and I'm very familiar with it. And I'm definitely an advocate of using whatever supports us. And it's just so individual. So I don't need them to love me more. So for me, I recognized that my husband shows his love for me in myriad ways. And it felt like an opportunity in this situation for me to just step up to the plate and be more proactive in giving myself what I felt that I really needed at that moment. And that it didn't matter. It just, I could take out the middleman and give myself what I thought my husband had to give me. And so it's just a beautiful way to live. So what we're going to do now is we're going to finish this whole Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, which is numbers 5 and 6, and they go more quickly. So I'm just checking. Yeah, we've got time for this. So what we do with number 5, it's called the complaints. And so it's like, what do you think of him or her in this situation? Make a list. It's okay to be petty and judgmental. So I made a list, and I'd love to hear you all add to it based on your situation. So this person is self-absorbed, uncaring, unfeeling, selfish. Who else has something for your number 5?
Authoritarian, an extreme right winger.
Yeah. Anybody else? What?
Domineering.
Domineering, yeah. So here's the trick with number 5. We get to find where we are all those things. And it sometimes is really easy and sometimes it's hard. But in my situation, I can definitely find where I'm self-absorbed, uncaring, unfeeling, and selfish, because yes, it happens. So find where you're those things. And you don't have to describe the situation, but it's really important to find it. And I'm thinking that maybe the right wing might be a really hard one. Was that what you said, Tina?
Yeah, he was like,
Yeah.
far right.
Yeah. So politics is one of the most dualistic things on the planet, but I bet if you really sit with it, you can find where you're right wing. And that will be really fun for you to discover, because whatever we project on political the political world is always showing us our shadow. So if we get triggered by politics, it's an opportunity to find where our shadow is really active. And I love how Baba didn't really want his lovers to be involved in politics, and he definitely didn't want his Mandali to discuss it. And I just think that's a great way to live myself. Does anybody have any observations about number 5?
Could you give an example of like how one could find themselves a right winger when they are?
Of what?
How could one find themselves a right winger when they?
Okay, so tell me one thing, like with your dad. Be really specific about his right wingness that you are complaining about.
He hated other ethnic groups. He thought he was
okay.
them.
Okay, so I don't know if this is true, but can you find where you have any hatred of right wingers?
I hate right wingers, yes.
So there you go. As long as you have hatred, that's where your shadow is projecting to show you that you are judging something that is internal to work on. Because until we can love everyone, our work isn't done.
So it
doesn't mean we condone their behavior.
I have to be a racist or a right winger, and stuff. It's just that I don't like them.
Well, this is interesting work, and it's something we could talk about. We could go on, but I think we're going to just move on. The other part that we do on number 5 is we find where that person is the opposite of those things that we are complaining about. So see if you can find where that person is not, whatever it is you found. Because remember, the mind always wants to be binary. It's always black and white, this or that, true or false, right or wrong, good or bad. And that's just not reality. So we have to be able to find where they're not. We just have to catch them doing it, even if it's for a millisecond. I mean, this is only if we want to be free. and I want to be free. Okay, so if anybody has something they'd like to share, now is the time, and then we're going to go on to statement number 6.
That's easier than I thought.
It was easy to find where they're not
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah. And see, this is why we always acknowledge that in the left hemisphere of the brain is what neuroscientists call the interpreter. And it's just got this story, even though it's negative. And we keep finding proof. We just keep proving that this story that we're running about our life is true. But when we stop and question our thoughts, we can find, oh, it's not always true. There's this and that. And it's just a much nicer way to live, you know, to not stick to this old story that's so negative.
Do you think, Anne, that when we experience like something like that, or like a trauma or mini trauma or some event, do we then turn around and project that onto others? Is that what's happening?
Well, you know what comes up for me right away when you say that is, I think about the phenomenon that we have, probably are familiar with, where children who were sexually abused tend to sexually abuse children. And so that would be a very extreme example, but I do believe we project onto others what's been done to us until we don't. I mean, that's my experience. I could see all the negative things in my father. God forbid I saw it in myself. I could find it, and it was really difficult work.
Well,
But I
we're
could
very
find
good
it.
students. We learn really well.
Well, yeah, because children, I mean, especially children are absorbent, right? Children are like a sponge, and so we absorb everything. And then, you know, we live it out. And like I could see with my mother, I could never find anything to judge her on because she was kind of like a saint. And when I finally found the thing to judge her on, it was that she didn't fulfill her creative potential. Because I realized that she was a beautiful soul, but there was a certain melancholy about her. And I realized that because of World War II, she had been unable to fulfill some of her dreams. She had had her college degree and she had wanted to travel the world, and then the war came. And so I think she wanted to have a family, but I think it wasn't that fulfilling because she hadn't fulfilled her other dreams. And so she had a lot of artistic ability. And so when I did the work on her, I realized it was like, oh, that would be me. I wasn't fulfilling my creative potential. And it really took me doing that work on my mother to find that blind spot in myself where I wasn't like really on fire to, you know, with anything. And I had come to Baba in 2001, and then I found the work in 2009. And so I was having a honeymoon with Baba until, you know, this situation that really took me to the depths of despair over my daughter came up. But then I realized, well, gosh, I wasn't passionate. I haven't really been passionate about what's in my heart to share, which is what I'm doing now. I love weaving everything that Baba has said with this work because it really like excites me. I'm inspired by it, and it just makes me so happy to be able to share it. And anyway, so that's an example of finding the projection onto my mother. It took me years to find it. I don't know if that helps answer your question, but
Can I chime in too?
Yes, I love that.
Answer to Arish's question, just in my experience working with people, trauma survivors, and children and adults clinically, like as a therapist. And I just wanted to say that it is one possible reaction for somebody to act out in the same way that, whatever happened to them, they'll act it out onto someone else. But it's only one of the many different ways that the behaviors will manifest. I don't think it's actually even a tendency. I think that you'll see a lot of, for example, sex abusers who have abused children did have that history as children themselves, but it's not the other way around too. It's not that if a person was sexually abused as a child that they tend to also do that to other children or even want to. And there's other reactions, like reenactment is a really interesting one, like putting oneself into a position where the trauma actually would reoccur, just to have subconsciously to have the opportunity to experience it again and to process it again, which is strange and unbelievable, but true. But it's Judith Herman is a really good author if anyone ever wants to read about it. But the sitting duck theory, it's called. But as it pertains to the work, I think that it's just, it can be internalized and then projected out in a lot of different ways, I guess is what, which it
kind of sounds like sanskaras,
Yeah. But thank you, Diantha, because that's a really important point. And yes, it's not everyone for sure. And that's really important that you made that clear. Yeah, depending on our sanskaras, we act out in different ways. And of course, like with my dad, who had a terrible temper, I didn't manifest it the way he did, but I could find it. I could definitely find what I didn't like about him. I could find it in me. And that helped me be more compassionate. So it's a deep subject. And anyway, so let's do number 6. We didn't do this yet. What is it about this person and situation that you don't ever want to experience again? So I don't ever want, and I wrote, to feel unloved by them again. So if that works for you, just notice in the work we say, I'm willing to feel unloved by them again. And we say this because we're on the road to freedom. We're trying to unwind, all of these attachments that are not healthy. And so we're willing to experience the feeling of being unloved by them because it shows us where our work is. Whatever triggers us is showing us where our work is. And not a day goes by where there isn't some kind of a trigger, but they get lighter and subtler. And then Katie says, I look forward, she says, I look forward to feeling unloved by them again. And I always tell my clients, I'm not there yet. I really don't look forward to it, but I am willing. And so that's how we finished that. And let's see. So we still have time. I wanted to just talk with you all. Maybe we can put up Baba right now. Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah. So we finished this month-long work on seeking love outside of ourselves, and that's a really big subject. And I had the thought about maybe doing a worksheet on Baba for the next month, and I wanted to just get your feedback. I've done worksheets on Baba and they've been amazing. But I'd just like to know, and also any of you can email me at Anne@kindreality.com. That's Anne with an E. If you have anything that you'd particularly like to work on in our inquiry circle, I'm totally open to I love getting feedback. But it did come to me that I think it would be really nice to do the work on Baba, if you're willing. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
That sounds exciting to me because I think that's who I have the most conversations with, the deepest relationship with, and so that's
yeah. And I mean, I've worked on Baba, and it just makes me come closer to him. So I feel very confident that he's quite happy if we want to do that.
I'm not sure I understand.
You're not sure you understand. So, for example, because I've been thinking about it. I don't know where my old worksheets are on him, but I just thought I have the experience sometimes that I'm discouraged with Baba because he leaves me at times. So sometimes, I feel like he's left me, or, I'm discouraged with him because, so I wrote down, I want Baba to make life easier for me. Or I want Baba to stay with me always. And the advice is Baba should show more compassion for me. And then I need Baba to love me more. And then I wrote, Baba is cruel, enigmatic, slippery, difficult, challenging. And then I wrote, I don't ever want to blame Baba again. So that's just an idea, a template. And we could even hammer one out, a group worksheet together, or I could bring one, or Diantha and I could, you're going to be on the road. Anyway, it's just something to think about. And if that isn't appealing, I would love to hear your thoughts on anything else. And I can always come up with something. I mean, Baba, I always feel like Baba inspires me. So anyway.
It sounds interesting.
Does that sound interesting?
Mm-hmm. And I liked working on COVID. That was very novel.
Yeah.
So,
did you say novel?
yeah. It was unusual.
Yeah.
Unusual angle.
Well, it just was such a, it was so up, it was such a big deal. I mean, it's still with us, but, it's not quite as intense, at least for some of us. I mean, Tina, it's not as intense for you, and you're at ground zero there, right?
Well, no, but we flattened the curve. Now other people are going through it.
Yeah.
Now it's Myrtle Beach and other places.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Okay.
Oh, it'll be okay.
Totally.
It's just Myrtle Beach.
We don't have the virus here.
Okay.
It's just,
Okay,
we're
so
taking
Cliff,
turns.
I would love to hear your thoughts. Do you have anything that we could do a group inquiry on, or do you like the idea of
I
doing
don't know. I mean, I love this work, and on anything, it's all the same.
Oh yeah, it's true.
But
All right.
I mean, nothing's coming to my mind right away.
Okay. Yeah.
But I would be cool to do a Baba thing, like do Baba things.
Yeah. So the other things, we can do the work on our bodies. There's a whole thing we can do on bodies, which might be really interesting. We can do the work on money. I mean, you can do it on inanimate objects. And
Wow.
I mean, I've done the work on coffee because I have a love-hate relationship with coffee, but I've done the work on the wind because we get really strong wind here at certain times of the year, and it just really has bothered me. And it made all the difference for me doing the work on the wind.
Wow.
We could do a generic thing on the weather, and everybody could pick out what they don't like about the weather. But
It's interesting. Coffee, going back to that is a thing that real caffeine and coffee and tea really is a big deal to so many people, and really actually the managing that. And so, like for me personally, I'm careful not to drink too strong a coffee, like the real designer coffees, and
Yeah.
grinding the beans, and I can't. Then you can have like one cup. You can't really drink coffee that's too strong, like all the time.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
Yeah. So how do you deal with it?
I just I know how to make coffee that doesn't kill me.
Right. Yeah.
It's not decaf, but it's just not as strong, and it's still French roast, and
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I got to the place where I do half decaf and half caffeine, and
yeah,
I make one cup and I have it in the morning. And then when I've gone to visit different places, like I stayed at Marana, and I
yeah,
found out that's what the people I was staying with there were doing. And then when I was in Myrtle Beach, that's what the files were doing. It's
yeah,
like as we get older, I
yeah,
speak for
smart.
some of us,
And and you know what
we
I
find
find?
ways.
Yeah, chai is worse than coffee.
Really,
Like,
well, it depends on the chai, right?
yeah, because like the real tea, one cup of tea, like that's real loose leaf and been boiled, I mean, forget it. And you drink a couple of cups of that and I'm flying.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. And sometimes it's fun to fly, but then, the
Yeah.
crash, there's always the crash.
I am addicted to caffeine, and being a studio producer, and it's like it's part of the studio thing. And
Oh,
I just do less of it.
yeah.
I was just drinking some iced coffee, which is really fun
Well,
because
I
I have
can tell you,
sugar.
my
So
relation,
here I am. I don't mean to be sidetracking everybody, but it's like a treat to put half and half in iced coffee with no sugar. That's like ice cream for me.
yeah, I hear you. No, my relationship with coffee improved dramatically from doing the work on it. You
Yeah,
know, I made peace with coffee.
yeah, it's great.
I mean, I can't live with it and I can't live without it, but I found a middle way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think some of these things might be too specific, and Baba might be too much of a big topic. I think, people that we have trouble with
Yeah.
are other subjects for this work.
What about our bodies? We can do the work on our bodies because we're not our bodies. Our bodies should be healthy. Our bodies should be young and supple. Would that be something you would enjoy working on?
Not really.
Okay, so we want, it really helps me to know what you guys want to work on because, we're kind of a group here and I'm very interested. But just so you know, when we do the work on the body, we turn it around to my thinking.
yeah.
So my
Body was
thinking
really
should
good.
be supple. My thinking should be young. And Katie just is so unattached to the body. So it's a beautiful thing because it's very much absolutely aligned with Baba. And we just come to notice that our bodies are beautiful servants and they wear out, and just our thinking about our body can become really a lot kinder. So
Mm.
so I don't know, we'll see what comes up next week. Anybody else want to just chat or share anything?
Would you send me the picture of your cat again? I didn't get it.
I was going to just hold her up, but she's not in the room. I will. I sent it to that email that you gave me, but anyway. Okay, so let me look at my notes here. They're scattered all over. Oh dear. Okay, here we go. I wanted to read from Effort and Grace, pages 10 and 11, about individual paths. Let's see. Bottom of page 10. Oh no, here it is. Yeah.
Ah,
Oh,
good.
wait. Oh, I sent that to you, didn't I, Diantha? Her name is Artie. It's short for Artemis. And she really is a hunter. She's a mighty hunter. That's my little girl who puts a smile on my face. Took me a year after my last cat's passing before I was ready. Okay, well, you can put Artie up or maybe Baba, but this is, I don't think I read this, did I? All right, if I repeat a paragraph, please forgive me. So Baba gives us clues about the spiritual path. Just the phrase withdrawal of consciousness in his discourse, arriving at self-knowledge, is a big clue because the whole process of the spiritual path involves withdrawing our consciousness from the lures of the attractions in the gross world and beginning to work within. Inner withdrawal is precipitated by disillusionment or simply common horse sense. We reach the point where we consciously withdraw our attention from the exterior world and begin to focus it more within at inner levels. In other words, as we become tired of the sense of bondage that we ordinarily experience after so much disillusionment and considerable inner striving, we turn away from the gross and toward God and reality within. In essence, inner work is a process of using our consciousness to separate the false from the real, because the real cannot be added to the false. The false must go. What we have to do is counteract our own ignorance. I recall that Mayor Baba once said that the truth, the real, cannot be known unless ignorance, the false, is known to be ignorance. This is all part of the conquest of the unconscious that Baba discusses. Despite periods where we may not seem to be getting anywhere, Baba says that we are continuously growing and making progress. The journey involves sporadic growth and apparent ups and downs until we reach the path of fortunate non-return. Each of us has to work with the sanskaras, the limitations, and the illusion of our own environment, of our own being. There are as many perspectives as there are individuals because of our different sanskaric backgrounds. So we are not identical in how we do this inner working. We have to forge our own ways of working and follow our own inner path. Also, we go through phases, so the ways in which we work change. Establishing systems or doctrine, It is not a matter of doctrines, and Baba purposely avoided establishing systems or doctrines. And we are not following followers of Baba, we are following the Master himself within our own being. And then I just have this one little closing quote from Baba. I don't know where it's from, but it's on a card that I found in my desk. He says, "I love you. Do not worry about your weaknesses. Eventually they will go. Even if they linger, love will one day consume them. Everything disappears in the ocean of love. Because I love you, you have a pool of love within you. When you feel wretched, when you fall in your weakness, have a dip in that pool of love. Refresh yourself in that pool of my love within you. It is always there. Even if you wash your weaknesses every day in that pool, it will remain clear. Don't worry, Baba loves you. That is what really matters." Isn't that beautiful?
That's I think that was to Arnavaz, and it's in the front of her book.
Oh, well, this is the card that I read from. It was in my desk and it doesn't say where it was from, but I just, it was like finding the best treat. So thank you everyone for coming and sharing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Baba, for your beloved presence.
Thank you, Anne, for your presence.
Yes.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Anne.
welcome.
Hey, Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba.